Lianne, say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Good to be back. Happy 2022.
Excellent. So we are live with the IFPA, International Fresh Produce Association in Southern Africa, with the fantastic Lianne Jones. Lianne, Lianne, our broadcast today is going to be about some ag tech, but I think what will be very beneficial is just to set the scene about the IFPA. I think if people have been living in a closet, they might not know about the creation of the IFPA. Is it okay, Lianne, if I just give a bit of a background, please, to the IFPA, and then take your view of that? Lianne, is that okay if I just give that bit of background, please?
Go for it, Max.
Okay, so the International Fresh Produce Association, the IFPA, has been created to bring our industry together to create a vibrant future for all of us. They have a fresh outlook on fresh produce, believing it can help solve some of the world's most pressing problems. They are the largest and most diversified international audience association serving the entire fresh produce and floral supply chain, and the only one to seamlessly integrate world-facing advocacy and industry-facing support. If you have a place in the fresh produce and floral industry, you have a place in the IFPA. They're here to grow your prosperity. They do this by conducting advocacy, connecting people and ideas, and offering guidance that allows us all to take action with purpose and confidence. Each month, if you remember from last year, we're going to be focusing on a major area of South African fresh produce, or doing some major deep dive interviews. And it's great to have Lianne back on. And Lianne, could you just give us a bit of an understanding as to how the IFPA has been created for those that might not be fully aware, please?
Super, Max. So at the end of last year, the Produce Marketing Association and United Fresh, which are two very large associations representing the fresh produce industry, closed their doors as such. And from the 1st of January, the International Fresh Produce Association was formed and created, bringing both of those two legacy associations and the expertise of those associations and the membership base together to form the IFPA. And I think the exciting part of it, Max, is really bringing the expertise of the two associations together, but also, you know, the clue is in the name, being international. The real focus of our association is to be an international association, driving advocacy, connecting and guiding the industry. So that's where we are, and we've got a shiny new name and an exciting, big plans for the future.
I think where it's really exciting for all of us in this global family of fresh produce is collaboration. If there's one thing that I've really learned after the last 2 years, yeah, especially with yourself and a number of the experts that you kindly brought on the various broadcasts that you and I've jointly done, is this collaboration. I think the sector of floral and fresh produce is unique because of the collaboration that we can create. And so now that we've got the IFPA having been created and working on an international basis and seeing the success that you've already created with it, I think it's going to be very exciting times. So we need to endorse you. We need to collaborate you. We need to join with the IFPA. Would that be correct, Lianne?
Absolutely, Max. And I think, you know, as the series evolves this year, you'll start seeing quite a lot more collaboration coming out of our association and driving a lot more advocacy, thought leadership, not just country specific, but probably cross Southern Hemisphere, cross global challenges and issues as well.
Excellent. So, Lianne, thank you for that. So if you want to find out more information on the IFPA, I don't know how you've quite done it, Lianne, but they've managed to get the web address, www.freshproduce.com. So just dial up freshproduce.com and you'll be able to engage with the IFPA and all of the social media. So let's come on to the subject of today, ag tech. Lianne, it's such a fascinating area, and I've said this before in a couple of other broadcasts. In the previous recession, there was a number of funds that raced into the agricultural sector, seeing it as a safe haven. With this perceived recession that we're going through as we work our way through the pandemic, we're seeing the same thing again, that the funds are coming in to the agricultural sector, but they're also coming into fresh produce and also coming into ag tech. There's a number of very interesting possibilities within this whole field. Lianne, it feels like we need some industry experts from ag tech to give us a bit of a steer on this area. What do you think?
Yes, I think that might be key, Max. And I wonder if we've got some on the broadcast today.
Gentlemen, would you like to all come in so that you can join with Lianne and I so that we can find out more about the subject of AgTech? So what we're just going to do, we're just going to run around our three experts just to get an understanding as to who they are and who they represent. So in no particular order. Alastair, shall we start with you, please? Who are you, and can you tell us all about your company, please?
Good afternoon, Max, and thank you very much for having me on board. I'm an agricultural economist by study and have been in the ag business for the past 20 odd years. I've worked from primary agriculture all the way through to retail marketing, export, import, and have now found myself in a position, an executive position with the KHULA Group. And under the KHULA umbrella, we offer a number of different platforms and tools to agribusiness. And the three main businesses under KHULA, we've got a fresh produce marketplace that is in a closed pilot at the moment. We've got an input marketplace, which is live and catering to South African farmers and primary producers. And then we've got a funded dashboard where we match social development funding, enterprise development funding with specific farmers within our database. So yeah, that is me in a nutshell. And
Alastair, if it's okay to ask, because it's fascinating your career background and have you moved into this software element? Has that been an interesting and exciting transition for you to go from the fresh produce side into software?
Absolutely. So throughout my career, I've been involved with intensive agriculture predominantly. So there has been a lot of computerization, digitization from a production perspective. And as I then progressed and got to understand the markets and the value chains, I've been able to identify where I can add value in real terms through digitization and through technology, finding efficiencies. And so although I'm not a coder or a developer, I'm able to scope and design, and that's where I fit in with our specific team.
Excellent. So it's brilliant to have that specific background expertise that you've got and being able to bring it into your world of software to be able to add value to your client base on that basis. Alastair, thank you. Martin, over to yourself, please. Could you introduce yourself and your small business?
Thank you very much, Max and Lianne. Yes, I think I followed the exact opposite path to Alastair. I went back up the supply chain. So at the moment, I head up the IT department for ZZ2, and I'm also the managing director of a partnering company, software development company called Think Ninjas. And my career started in technology, also 20 plus years ago as a developer. And then I worked my way back up the supply chain at ShopRite and those places more into the supply chain space. So going through into secondary distribution, route optimization from replenishment and forecasting, and have now ended up here as the head of IT. Yeah.
Excellent. And Martin, positive about the future with AgTech?
Very, very much so. I also just wanted to give a little introduction for ZZ2 for those who don't know. So obviously ZZ2 is a diversified farming group. I think we're most known for our tomatoes and avocados, but we also grow blueberries and cherries, apples and pears, onions, and medjool dates in Namibia.
Okay, excellent. Martin, thank you. And then over to Greg. Greg, shall I show off with my background for you whilst you give an introduction on yourself?
Sure, Max.
Go, Greg. Introduce yourself and tell us all about AgrigateOne, please.
Perfect, Max. So I grew up on a citrus farm in the Limpopo River Valley. I then kind of went to school in Pretoria and then studied at Stellenbosch University. I worked in the logistics industry after finishing my studies, and we looked at kind of the unit economics within the logistics industry. And I started the business to get my dad, who's a farmer, to stop complaining, which hasn't worked out just yet. But that means we still got a business case. So we're a data aggregation business, and we focus on network effects. So we work in software as a service, data as a service, within workflow or administrative tasks, and we look at the automation of administrative tasks. So we look at time efficiencies, cost efficiencies in that, and we kind of track it from your pack house to your destination port. And then we run efficiency models throughout. So we look for efficiencies through your value chain. We look for kind of overlaying or overhanging current structures and see if we can make them more efficient for our growers and wholesale, retail, and suppliers.
Excellent. Greg, thank you. So just to start this off, looking at the post that we put up on our Beanstalk site for the IFPA, there's a really interesting quote. I didn't come up with this. I plagiarized it. It's often been stated that you only get 40 attempts at farming, 40 harvests. From your 20s to your 60s, you only get 40 seasons. But in AgTech, you get 40 attempts in a week. And this one thing that we've seen in the UK, a bit of a peculiarity, that there's an AgTech group here that we occasionally host with. 4 years ago, they did a big visit to Canada to look at primary agriculture and also AgTech. And they took over a number of AgTech companies to meet the Canadians. The Canadian consulate is coming over to the UK in our summer, so July, August time. And he was very keen to meet those AgTech companies that he met 4 years ago. But the embarrassment is that all those AgTech companies, very sadly, have gone. They've either been bought out or the model has failed. So I suppose it's such an interesting space that we've got so many people coming into the sector that we need businesses like all of the gentlemen here to really show the light and to prosper. And I suppose that's the interesting one as to growers, as to who they should be aligned to make sure that they're aligned to for the future. So on that side, Jens, what's the current landscape in South Africa on AgTech and digitalization? Alastair, let's start with you. Do you see that the AgTech landscape within South Africa is sophisticated, or do you think you're behind some other markets like the US and the UK? Alastair, what do you think?
I think it's a very broad question. I think that there are definitely some of the bigger players in the industry that have been integrated, have been operating in the space, have invested quite heavily in the space from a primary production perspective. Whether it is the digitization of production, looking at vertical farming, that sort of thing, which is completely computerized, or coming through into more the consumer side of AgTech and looking at the value chain. I think we've got a little bit of everything, and it's disjointed, I think, would be the best and honest answer at this stage. The integration between parties has not yet started to take place.
Yeah. Alastair, well done. Martin, we're seeing the same thing in the UK, that a conventional arable farmer is being inundated with all of these data sources that have been presented to them. And the number of farmers I speak to, they wish there was a one amalgamation to get all that data coming through. Would you agree with Alastair that it is a bit disjointed in that respect? And if so, what's the solution?
Yeah, I would like to agree with that. I think just in terms of the plethora of technology that we have all access to, that's actually a great thing. And the fact that it's so transportable across country boundaries, so you can have the best of what the Israeli tech industry has to offer, the South African tech industry, the UK, the US, anywhere in the world. So you are in a way overwhelmed with choices. And the challenge would then become to choose things that are long-lasting, provide value. I think that's a big thing. That's something that is permanent, is the provision of value, and to make sure that you're always adding value to the supply chain, to the growers and to the customers and the major players. But it is a challenge to integrate the technology and also to pick the right things that you then get value from. Yeah.
Martin, thank you. And just to say, everyone dialed in either on Zoom or LinkedIn, on Facebook, if you've got any questions for our experts or Lianne, feel free to present them over. Greg, just to pull at that thread even more so about the number of potential offers for growers. I was listening to an article in the UK last night about the number of streaming services that you have, the likes of Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, and a number of other services coming in. And they're competing they're sort of being cannibalistic. They're competing for the same market share, and the consumer's getting confused. And the commentator I was listening to is saying that what there needs to be is one app that you just can get the best thing from. And we're seeing the same, that there's a very large North American tech business that's looking to buy up other tech businesses, and they want to just create a one-stop solution so that a farmer, whether it be an arable farmer in the UK or a citrus grower in South Africa, can go to them and have the whole suite from accountancy through to agronomy. Greg, do you think that's the way it's going to go? Is it going to continue to be fragmented as it is, as Alastair and Martin have indicated?
Max, I think I'll just quickly start on the current landscape and the digitization, and then lead into that question. But I think, with South Africa kind of infrastructure kind of a bit behind the curve, a lot of growers and exporters alike have had to adapt technologies quicker than other regions where they've been a lot more reliant on government infrastructure. So I think from, I read a quote the other day. It says it was, if plan A fails, at least you've got plans from A to Z. So if plan A fails, you've got 25 other plans. And I think that's quite unique to South African growers too, is, they do generally make a plan, and largely we are seeing a move to kind of a tech plan or a digital strategy kind of sophistication over kind of the current landscape in South Africa. I mean, there's in my mind, you've got a lot of the archaic structures with your ETL processing, and you're quite heavily intense technologies, where in my mind, I agree with Martin and Alastair, you could move more to kind of partnership, API, open source based technologies, because where we've seen it is what works really well is businesses that have core focal points. Is you can't actually do everything. In agriculture, there's too much flexibility. There's too many moving parts, especially in fresh produce. You have to build a system that's highly flexible yet configurable. So I don't think there is someone that can build everything for everyone unless they buy up these businesses that focus on niche parts of the ag value chain. So in my mind, it's if you do what you do in your space really well, there's larger room for success in it. And I think to what Martin and Alastair both said is, that kind of leads into your kind of infrastructure play, or your IT infrastructure play, and then the continuity thereof. So yeah, I do not think that you can kind of have a one size fits all model in technology, specifically in perishables, not yet. But with technologies in 10, 15, 20 years, I'm sure you can, and I'm sure we'll touch a little bit on kind of blockchain and that a bit later too.
Well done. And Greg, just my analogy of streaming services, and there being too much of an offer for the consumer. Can you see the same happening within fresh produce for growers, be it in South Africa or internationally? Will there be too many offers out there? It's just going to be confusing for the grower.
Yeah, so I think so. So I think AgTech was the second most funded kind of tech sector last year or during the COVID pandemic. So I think it has been health tech, EdTech, and AgTech. And I think, there are, in your streaming kind of example, I think there is a business called Hulu that is trying to do this in America, where they do combine your Netflix, your Apple, all of them in one. So you have one login to go look at it. I guess for the content creators, it becomes a bit difficult. So the people actually building that technology, and I think it's quite similar here in South Africa. I think you can, if you find the right partners to work with, and you all have aligned vision and kind of a view on your technology and digital strategy, it's definitely can happen.
Yeah.
And you kind of pick people in specific parts of it. Generally, we refer to things as either on-farm or value chain technologies. If you kind of get mixed in the messy middle there in terms of trying to do a bit of on-farm with value chain, you often your kind of long-term strategy gets a bit mixed up too, in my mind.
Well done. So Martin, all the farmers and growers I know, UK internationally wise, ROI, return of investment. Do you think that the investment that growers and farmers are going to put into these systems, they are going to get that return of investment. Martin, what do you think?
I believe so. If you choose the right technology and it provides value, that's why I keep harping on about the providing value, fundamental. The thing that you must provide, and it's like what Greg said now as well, is that you must be very clear in what value you're trying to provide, what problem you're trying to solve, and you must do that the best that you can do. If you try to do everything for everyone, you get to be, too complex where you should be too simple, and too simple where you should be complex, and you end up making wrong decisions there. But ultimately, there's a lot of value either on farm or in the value chain to unlock with technology, to match supply and demand more effectively. I think ultimately it's going to boil down to matching supply and demand effectively in terms of the value chain, in terms of provision of water, the allocation of scarce resources, etc. The big players are going to be matching supply and demand, and that choice and the burden of belonging to certain value chain services or certain blockchains. That's the kind of thing that the growers are preparing for, I think, or should be.
Excellent, Martin. Thank you, Alastair. I said this quote in the green room, and I love it. Having travelled extensively through South Africa, to me, your growers are some of the most sophisticated growers globally. You export 4.5 million tons of fresh produce in a conventional year. You serve 3.5 million tons to your domestic markets. So you're sort of positively being forced to create great breeding programs and great supply chain process systems throughout your whole fresh produce sector. On this subject of ag tech, do you think South Africa is behind or ahead of the curve? Alastair, are you behind or ahead of the curve on ag tech?
I think in that space, specifically the export-orientated business, we're in line with the rest of the world. I think to some extent we could even be developing ahead of it because we are very, customer-focused and customer-orientated. The guys are constantly looking at finding efficiencies. How do they build trust in the South African product and produce? Exactly to Martin's point, we're constantly looking to add value to what we are providing. It's not just a commodity, it's a service. And the digitization and ag tech that is being developed is there to build that trust through better communication, through the different tools that are being used in that space. So whether it's a marketing or a CRM sort of digitization tool talking about the logistics and the possible hurdles, that is something that sector of our industry definitely is, I think, on par, if not leading.
Excellent. Also, I think you're being a bit modest. I think you're ahead of the curve, but that's just my view. Greg, there's a saying in media that you should create the conversation, not be part of the conversation, especially with ag tech. Presumably, this is the same with the likes of your business, AgrigateOne. You've got to be creating the conversation. You've got to be ahead of the curve. What's your view? Is South Africa as a whole ahead of the curve on this ag tech subject?
Yeah, I think quite similar to Alastair. I think we kind of ahead behind the curve. So in many aspects we are ahead of the curve. Like I said, is because people have had to make plans and not rely on certain infrastructure. I mean, I'm sure you've all seen with the infrastructure in Durban Port, the amount of produce in the ground and the kind of our road networks and the amount of gas needed and that. So guys have been making plans for years already. I think going into our pack house systems and some of the IoT measurements on farms, our pack house systems are generally, I think, ahead of the curve. I mean, we've looked at some stuff outside of South Africa now, and generally our pack house systems and smart sorting systems and that are generally ahead of the curve. I do think in line with what you just said about, starting to kind of drive the change and the movement is exactly what you got to be part of. You got to go be driving some of these company forums or industry forums in new ways of thinking and different ways of doing it, in using technology in advancement. So, advancing yourself through better technology, smarter technologies, consolidation of data sources, better planning, all of that. And I think we are definitely moving that way in terms of being ahead of the curve. But again, if you keep operating completely in isolation, you'll think you're ahead of the curve in these kind of isolated balls, but you you're kind of ahead of the curve in your own game. So you're not ahead of the curve in entirety, where, you know, South African produce should be viewed as a single product itself when you view it as an export product. And how do you work together to get ahead of your kind of competitive markets outside of SA?
Yeah, well done. Lianne and I would be able to reminisce over our history in this sector. Individuals who stated to us both that we're the best at what we do within fresh produce, and those businesses have gone 10, 15 years ago just because they got complacent. And I do find that some of the better businesses I come across, that they're worried about the future, and because they're worried about the future, they actually do something about it and create that change. Martin, there will be challenges, and you've all intimated about the likes of the infrastructure within South Africa. What are the challenges, Martin, that you see within AgTech within South Africa? And if I could give you the proverbial magic wand, how would you eliminate those challenges?
I just want to quickly agree with Greg there. I think the challenges that we face, and it kind of answers your question as well, is I see it as the necessity is the mother of invention. You know, so those challenges that one faces, you have to turn into opportunities. And I know it's flippant to say that, but some of the challenges we face in terms of, say, connectivity, other countries don't necessarily face those same challenges, and it forces us to make systems that are offline tolerant, resilient. And some other countries face those same challenges, and it makes it more competitive for the South African AgTech industry to sell its products overseas. In other places that have similar challenges. And I think the beauty of what we have is we are resilient and responsive in how we make use of technology. And if one follows a best of breed approach, you get the best pack line that you then hook up to the best pack house system for that pack house, and you make these good combinations of things. And therein is the opportunity, the integration opportunity. So it allows us to follow this best of breed approach because we see these things as individual components that make up greater than the sum of the parts.
Yeah, Martin, well done. Alastair, be fascinated to hear your view of in that from the supply side to where you are currently. You'll have a better understanding as to what the supply chain issues are. What are the challenges that you see from a supply perspective and a software perspective? What are the challenges that you see, please, Alastair?
Well, I think, again, that there are a number of different tools out there, and for a smaller scale farmer, it's very difficult, or producer, to identify what is going to be the best fit. And I think exactly to the points that have been made, it's about, in the digital world, it's about is what you are going to apply scalable? Is it going to integrate with other systems? You can't be sitting with a payroll system that doesn't talk to your financial system, that doesn't talk to your quality management system, because you're just going to run out of time. You need to be able to find something that's going to be a best fit across those points. From an internal perspective, we've got major challenges just with government supported infrastructures. We've got data, cell phone signal, things like that, electricity, all of those sort of things that are on the ground, very real operational headaches that come into this digital space. Because if you're expecting somebody to climb on an app or on a web-based product and they haven't got electricity, they cannot communicate. And that all impacts on your value chain. So yeah, I hope I've answered your question in that space, but those are some of the challenges that we're having to design for from a tech perspective to make sure that we can still offer value to our user base.
Alice, it's very interesting what you say about mobile signal. We sometimes say that in South Africa, you have far better mobile signal than we do in the UK. You must come over an experience, and I'm sure Greg will be able to reiterate that. And also, I'm not being flippant. There's always a positive from a negative. This issue about the internet, you look at what Elon Musk is doing and his little mini satellites and the progress that's been made there. You would assume that in a relatively short period of time that there will be that connectivity on a global basis, and that's going to be a boom to you all, I suspect. Greg, I'm going to put you on the spot on that one. Do you know anything about that and about how the likes of that connectivity is going to be made better in South Africa?
Look, I generally do follow the Boring Company and Elon's crazy ideas, and some of them I buy into, and some of them are far-fetched. I'm sure some of the team that sit here with me also believe that I've got a few kind of blue sky ideas that are kind of unachievable, but they're unachievable until achieved, right? So I think, yeah, so I do think connectivity is a big issue. I mean, I drove from Limpopo this morning, and you know, the phone cut out probably 5-10 times just on that drive alone. So there are connectivity issues, but I do think with the likes of kind of satellite technology, further reaching technology, exactly what Martin said earlier, is guys plan for it better too. You know, your system becomes more robust, you plan for it. So as connectivity actually improves, you've already planned for the worst, basically. So I do believe that there is going to be a space for kind of these new technologies, and specifically the likes of kind of satellites, and you know, I'll chat about it a bit later in terms of where I see the industry in 2050. But yeah, I definitely do think these are the types of things that can drive the industry forward.
Okay, so you're positive. So it's a bit like the electric car scenario. The problem with electric cars is the lack of the battery life. But there's enough research been shown that within 5-10 years, crikey, even the growers dialed in, they might actually have tractors being run on battery power because the technology is there. So Greg, you're positive that there will be other solutions coming down the line.
I am. I mean, we've been operating for 4 years technically, but 3 years operationally, and you know, we've started with growers that were very kind of still land based, and you know, plug in internet that with no Wi-Fi, and you know, 3 years down the line, they Wi-Fi, they're running quite kind of advanced networks and things like that. So I am advanced in the last 3 years, we've seen the change. So I mean, with the kind of the way the world's going, you know, in the next 5 years, and especially what's happened in the past, you know, 2 years with COVID, it has highlighted a need for kind of technology and kind of, you know, advancement in that space. I think better connectivity. I mean, we basically moved to a virtual world. I mean, if you want to start talking about the metaverse, I guess, you know, we could eventually go shopping on a pack house floor, right, with our VR goggles. So yeah, I do think like there's always scope for these type of things.
Yeah, and just an interesting one on the VR side of things. That a contact of mine actually from South Africa 3 years ago went to a tech conference in Las Vegas, and virtual headsets were going to be the thing 3 years ago. And as we got into the pandemic and we all got onto the Zoom squares of death or Teams squares of death, I thought virtual reality headsets were going to roar in. But then there's a problem with them that I'd never thought of before, that you can't write anything down when you've got a virtual reality headset on. And a lot of people get motion sickness with them as well. So they're not taking up as we thought they would be. So again, it's fascinating, that tech element as to how they occasionally come across stumbling blocks. And talking of stumbling blocks, and Alastair will relate to this. I've also had a frustration within the fresh produce sector that I think all of the growers globally, they do such a fantastic job and they grow such amazing product, but they don't get paid, they don't get rewarded enough by the retailers on a global basis in comparison to a branded good, in comparison to a sugary soft drink where they can get double-digit margins. And as we know, within our sector, we're seeing single-digit margins. And so it always comes down to the same thing. If we can't get more from the retailer, there's so much profitability potentially held up within the supply chain. So again, it comes over to AgTech. So within South Africa, how can AgTech make us more efficient and more competitive in the local and the international markets? Alastair, what do you think?
So in the space we're working in, a simple and easy place to start really is empowerment of our user base, the farmers, just through sharing data, just through sharing information on price and price points and market trends and that sort of stuff, sharing information about the barriers to entry or perceived barriers to entry to be able to compete in a formalized market environment. That sort of thing at the moment for a smaller or emerging farmer is a little bit of a mystery. It's not easily sought out and found. It's not well communicated. And so I feel the tech can, for a start, just help with transparent education within the marketplace. As you obviously get to more competitive commercial farmers, you're now moving into that marketing aspect, and you can then share data, and you can start to populate and share data that they can use specifically to manage their basket and their different marketplaces. There's obviously massive logistics efficiencies and traceability efficiencies that are being brought through by ourselves as well as other people in the forum today. And so I think that there are a number of very key value propositions that are easily identifiable from a digital and tech perspective throughout the value chain, from a primary agriculture perspective all the way through.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Alastair, thank you. Martin, your thoughts? How can it make us more efficient and competitive in the South African markets?
I think that AgTech is really primarily positioned to provide that kind of value. If you look ahead, I think what COVID and stuff has done for us, it's forced people to rethink, where they get their product from, how they source it, how it's treated, and those are all opportunities. I mean, they are compliance, and it is I won't say a burden of compliance, but there's a requirement of compliance with those things. But there is an opportunity to know your business better and to work more efficiently. And then also with the multiple supply chains or sales paths or value chains for your product to the market, there's again an opportunity to let the free market system do its thing and provide value to the consumer and to the grower and all the players in between. So it's really a big opportunity to be able to connect supply and demand very efficiently and effectively in the most economical way and most balanced way.
Martin, thank you. And Greg, do you see that it's going to make you more efficient and competitive? And just to give you a bit of a segue there, one thing that we're seeing in other markets is the generational change, that especially within a family unit, that the father wasn't that keen on adopting this technology, but as the younger family have come in, they've been very keen to adopt it. Greg, your views?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think Martin referenced supply and demand earlier, and I think kind of everything leads back to supply and demand, and it's balancing the markets, not only the pure supply and demand from the fruit side, but the pure supply and demand for the need for visibility these days. If you look at the kind of advancement of WhatsApp over the last 5 years in terms of what the functionality, just everyone uses WhatsApp, the functionality thereof, it's a similar movement in other industries that have kind of historically not adopted technology as quickly, but once that adoption rate starts picking up, and the younger generation are around. I mean, but you'll be surprised at the older generation at how keen they are for tech too. So because they also don't want to be left behind. But the different parts of the technology appeal to your different generations in the business too. We're seeing, like with the older generations, your practicality around the technology is a lot more kind of hits home a bit harder, whereas your younger generations are more in line with, what algorithms are you building, what kind of data are you using, where are you housing the data, that type of thing. So it's more in depth, So yeah, I definitely think kind of technology is starting to take off quite heavily in South Africa, and I look forward to seeing the likes of KHULA and what ZZ2 and them are doing over the next couple of years. I've known Alastair for a while now, and I get really excited at some of the stuff they're working on. So yeah,
I love this example. That's in the year 2000 in the UK. Our main farming magazine ran a survey to see what everyone thought was the most important piece of farm equipment over the last 50 years. So this was in 2000. And did they go for combine? Did they go for tractor? No, they went for the mobile phone as the most important piece of farm machinery in the farm. And Greg, when you said WhatsApp, probably if we did the survey today, a lot of people would say the most important thing on a farm and growing perspective is WhatsApp, because of the communication. But you can see that in another 5 years, when the AgTech is sorted out on a growing farming perspective in South Africa, it's very likely to be a platform, and hopefully one of the ones that we've got represented today. So I think it's really, really exciting. And just on that basis, it'd be fascinating to get some real life examples of the innovations that you're all seeing locally, and also what sort of challenges that they're solving. Martin, are you seeing any innovations that you could give examples of us so that we can get an awareness of, please?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of innovation in the IoT space, especially. I mean, if we look at the fourth industrial revolution, it's really here, and it's alive and well, and it's changing the world as we know it. So in the IoT space, in terms of sensors in the ground, measuring every aspect of the plant, in terms of controlling water, and again, that's a universal theme, is matching supply and demand. So matching the demand of the tree with scarce resources of water, and then efficiently using those. In the supply chain space, I think pack house systems, like Greg and I think Alastair have said, there's a lot of interesting work being done there, and it's driven by international requirements, as well as the fact that it's just good for business and good for local sales as well. So a lot of traceability that you need to kind of comply with. I think in terms of practical technology, scouting apps, we've done some interesting work, especially around scouting apps and the ability to kind of make it accessible for people to use, who are not always it's not always as accessible if it comes from an international source and it assumes a certain language, or it assumes a certain level of education, etc. So I think around those things, there's a lot of value that's being created, and along with what Alastair and Greg are doing in the supply chain space, there's also companies like AgrigateOne Innovation who are bringing a lot of innovation to soil classifications and understanding, where you're farming and should you be farming there, and where you're planting, and making the best decisions around those things. That's not really visible. It's hidden below the surface of the earth. So that's a lot of cool stuff. And I think the last thing I want to mention is maybe remote sensing. We've got things like aerobotics that is a great South African startup, and then also satellite imagery and the accessibility of that on any point in the globe to be able to see what's happening with your fields on a longer term interval, but still very detailed and very accurate.
Yeah, that we're working with a UK example at the moment that's looking to go international of probes that go into the ground and monitor not only soil fertility but moisture, and also potentially any plant issues, and they'll communicate back to the mothership on an automated basis. And I remember, crikey, 20-30 years ago when I was working on cotton in Australia, utilizing neutron probes to measure water moisture, and how that technology is ramping on. I get more excited the more I think about it. Alastair, local innovations that you're seeing, please?
So I think one of the things that we're doing is looking at the fintech side of the digitization, and what we're doing, making the actual trader safe for both the farmer and the buyer, especially people that haven't engaged previously, knowing that for all intents and purposes, the money is good. You can pack a product and send it. We're dealing with a vast and expansive country, as Greg has explained with his travels today. And you sit as a farmer already having taken 90 to 120 days minimum of risk just to grow a product. You pack it and send it to someone hoping that they're going to put the money in the bank. And so, I think there's a lot of room for development, and we are implementing that from our perspective at KHULA, to try and make sure that trade is as safe as it possibly can be through using different fintech products.
Yeah, well done. Great example, because I was majoring on the soil, but actually the transactional process is also just equally as important, because as for example, if you're shipping product halfway around the world and not getting paid for it, you got a bit of an issue. Greg, what about you? What local innovations are you seeing on the ground, please?
So I think, Max, one of the things I mentioned earlier is the kind of unpredictability of the perishable market. And I think what we're seeing is like these unique data ingestion models that are catering for like assumptions that could happen in the South African market. I mean, last year we had looting, we had ransomware strikes. You know, generally every year there's a truck strike on the N3 at the Moy River Plaza, and it's all like, in my mind, I'm seeing like a movement to these kind of predictability models through data ingestion. I mean, you know, and then overlaying that with, you know, dam levels, weather kind of prediction, and that to understand when that crop's ready. Are you going to be transporting it in those 2 weeks when generally that disruption happens? So where I'm seeing a lot of kind of movement in the ag space too, is around predictability and looking forward into the models. So using historical data sets, and again, the models are only as good as the data you can collect from previous years, and so your fruition of this product only gets better over time. And we're seeing a lot of that starting to happen, you know, that the kind of predictability models, but then how your farm tech devices as well as technologies have a direct relation to your value chain technologies. And I think Martin alluded to it earlier, as in how do you, or Alastair, how do you then tie those to kind of technologies together to enhance decision making, to enhance visibility, to enhance trust throughout the value chain, and we're seeing a lot of that movement in the market at the moment.
Yeah. Well done. And Jens and Lianne, people, the only way that the AgTech sector in South Africa is going to prosper is by finding the brightest individuals, whether they be young or old, but to come into the sector and to be excited about it. Just want to give you a direct example within the UK. There was a very large estate near us, farming estate, and they were looking to advertise for a tractor driver, and this tractor driver had to look after, I have to go to Sterling, £250,000 worth of kit. So this is a sophisticated tractor, sat nav, it's a planting rig, it's a ploughing rig. So there's a lot of software electronics on this, and they couldn't find an individual for love or money. So the farm manager actually spun it around and advertised for a software engineer, and he got half a dozen people coming in because they're intrigued. And then when they were shown the kit and shown that the office was actually this big green tractor costing £250,000, the preferred individual got the job, and he's been there for 5 years now and is absolutely loving it. So they had to sort of put a twist on it to get people in. How can we attract more people into the ag tech sector in South Africa, whether they be young or old? But what do we need to tell them? How can we get them excited about coming into ag tech? Martin, what do you think?
I think, you know, that story that you said there, like it's awareness. You know, it's things like this that helps people to understand what it's about. And I think it's a virtuous industry to be part of. You know, so I never dreamt I'd be part of the industry when I started out my career. But the more you go along, the fact that there's so many advances, and like Greg alluded to it in terms of the investment in ag tech, there's also the practical side, the actual farmers, the growers themselves. It's an exciting industry to be part of. It's virtuous, it's innovative, it's growing. I also want to kind of second what Greg is saying. It's not just young people who are excited about ag tech. It's everyone who can see the value of it. You know, so I think it's awareness, and it's this resurgence in healthy lifestyle, healthy focus. And people want to be part of that, and it's so functionally diverse, you know, that it's from logistics, supply chain, tech, the actual growers themselves, agronomy services, etc. It's so functionally diverse. There's almost a place for everyone in the ag industry.
Fantastic. Alastair, how can we attract more people into ag tech?
So I think I'm always very vocal with my team, where I explain to them that we're in the tech space and we're offering a service to agriculture. And I think that is quite a big differentiation. You know, what you're explaining to me resonates far more in agriculture, that young people are not necessarily attracted to it. Whereas the tech space, we've got the most wonderful team of young, diverse, highly skilled developers, you know, IT guys that really are super passionate about getting involved in agriculture. And so I'm not seeing that it's a hurdle from that perspective. I think the hurdle possibly is more on the ag side. And I think that as long as we've got a value proposition that is easy to distinguish, like WhatsApp is for everybody, it's not going to be a massive challenge to pull people into the space from an ag perspective as well.
Yeah, and if you look at Alice's website, it looks a very fun and enjoyable place to work at. So I definitely endorse having a look at Alice's website. So, Greg, are you worried about attracting talent into the sector, into your own business?
No, I think I agree with Alastair here and Martin too. Is I think, you know, from our side is agriculture is pretty inherent in South Africa or kind of sub-Saharan Africa, you know. So a lot of people, you know, other than kind of growing up within the city limits, you know, there's a lot of agricultural land not far from these general kind of suburbia. So there's this inherent nature within, in my mind, within South Africans and broader that kind of have this like deep connection to the soil. So I think, you know, it's also about how you kind of position it. Like Alastair said, they're a technology business that deals in agriculture, whereas, you know, we also pride ourselves on being true to our roots. You know, one of the things we love is the people you work with in the industry, the relationships, the value of trust and kind of and the emphasis they place on relationships and the type of people they are. You know, it's a lot of salt of the earth type of people with very long-term views. You can't be short-term in agriculture. You can't think you're going to plant a tree tomorrow and in a few months' time you're making these big profits and you know, you're living a good life. It's not like that at all. I mean, 7 years break even, 9 years on some crops. So it's that type of culture that's kind of getting ingrained. And I think, you know, there's this move to kind of more inclusivity within the ag space, you know, so be it gender, be it race, and there is a big drive from specific companies to do that now, and I think that's kind of creating this talent pool and widening the talent pool here in South Africa. I mean, 70% of our team are farmers' children or have some kind of link to agriculture or obsessed with agriculture or food systems and that. So, and I think like there's enough people out there that are keen to get more into ag tech, that side of things.
Greg, well done. And we have a lot of international students dialed in. And the bit I always want to emphasize is that the fresh produce sector, the horticultural sector, the floral sector is a global community. So you can work in South Africa or South America or North America or Australia. You don't have to be pigeonholed to one particular area. There's so much to see. So come on, gents, I'm going to give you the big one. We want you to predict the future. We're going to, Lianne and I are going to date stamp this. So if you had the proverbial crystal ball, what is this industry of ag tech going to look like? Or let's pick a number, say by 2050. What's the sector going to look like? Come on, Alastair, take us away.
I think to start with, as Greg says, we're still going to be harvesting from the plants and the trees possibly that are being picked and planted now. And so there is a very real significance to that. I think that we are going to see a lot more open source engagement. I think there could be a possibility for engagement in the open market environment for blockchain if it can prove its value.
Yeah.
And I think one needs to interrogate that from a sustainability perspective, because we're working with nature at the end of the day. So one really needs to look at it holistically. I think that we are going to see consolidation from an international perspective. We're going to be engaging even closer with our international markets and be part of international teams. I think that's going to be a major differentiator, is that the globalization is going to continue in this digital space. And data is going to be shared, and we're going to be able to make much quicker decisions and build stronger and better relationships. And I think that is super, super exciting to be able to move into that space.
Alastair, thank you. Martin, come on. Here's your crystal ball. What do you predict? What do you see?
I agree with what Alastair is saying. I think we're going to see, especially on the boots on the ground agriculture space, we're going to see digital twins of the plants. So IoT will almost, it's going to be like, you'll be able to see almost every single plant as an individual. Potentially in the future, you'll be able to match the supply and demand needs of each plant. And then also in terms of humans, I think you'll always have people involved in the process, but you'll progressively add what I call an exoskeleton of awesome around people, like awareness, augmented reality, those kind of things will play almost like a routine role in both in the field and in the pack house and along the value chain. I think that those things will make massive differences. You'll be able to treat almost every plant as an individual. And then also in the supply chain space, you will have a variety of ways to sell your products as a grower, and consumers will have a lot of choice around it. There'll be a lot of traceability. Like Alastair is saying, if blockchain and the chain of provenance, will become more and more important, and you'll be able to tell exactly how your product was treated in more and more detail, with more and more assurance that it's actually the case. So I think a lot of the elements that we're seeing will extend into the eventual ultimate evolution. So all the things we're seeing in the fourth industrial revolution with regards to machine learning, kind of being very responsive and reactive to the plant's needs in terms of pests and in terms of plant needs, nutritional needs, etc. That will just amplify and become commonplace throughout the operations of each business, I think.
Martin, well done. I remember going to a lecture 3 years ago, and it was the CEO of the Compass food service group, who've got multiple sites internationally, and he was predicting the future because he was asked this question, and he was stating about his granddaughter by the age of by the time of 2050 she'd be whatever 21, and she would be on her running machine with a pair of glasses on, and she'd be choosing her evening meal as she was running on the treadmill, and be choosing the fruit salad that she would want, and would be selecting the fruit, where it's come from, and looking at the backstories to how the fruit was generated and how well the growers were being treated, not only in the respect of on the land, but by the retailers, so she could make her decision. So that's absolutely falling in place with what you're stating. So come on, Greg, let's get out your crystal ball and give it a good polish. What are you predicting, please? Oh, Greg, just unmute yourself.
Yeah, so kind of 3D printing of produce in store. So going in there and ordering the variety, color, sugar level that you want your fruit. So I think I agree with Alastair, there's a big move to sustainability. So tracking consumerism trends, understanding what Sally wants in London in a store in Hyde Park is very different to what Jimmy wants in California, and understanding that. So consumerism patterns, understanding, the need to track obviously your carbon footprint, your carbon credits. So bringing that in. So when you do go to a store, you've already got these Amazon Freshes and these self-checkout stores where you don't even have to, you just pick up the produce and walk out. But it's going to go one step further. It's going to go, as you said, is you'll know beforehand. You can go and look at the carbon credit to get that orange to a store in the UK. You can see what the farm working conditions look like. You can see the chemical usage. You can see pictures and imagery of where it came from. And then I think where I'm going from our side is we're looking at automation of trade. So how do you automate trade with little to no input from single data sources? So how do you use disparate data sources to progress a trade, but through automation? So very low human touch, that type of thing. And then I think we will see a big move to near sourcing as more in developed world. So near sourcing, smart agriculture, smart farms, where guys are looking for low carbon credit. But again, a lot of these smart farms technology still has a way to go, because there's a massive carbon footprint for smart farming and water usage and that. So there's a lot of technology that will still go into that. And that's kind of where I see it. And then, by 2050, are we talking about Southern Earth, or are we talking about Mars? Because then I do believe that, you'll probably be able to buy a variety or a tree that you could plant yourself and grow your own produce, and then, kind of mix it up or graft it with a different commodity. So you could grow grapes, oranges, all on the same produce. I mean, I don't know where we're heading. So that's kind of what I like.
Great. Well done. What a masterclass. So just as we're running out of time, so the future is bright for South African fresh produce, especially so if they're aligned to AgTech, the correct AgTech for their systems. Would that be correct, Martin?
100%. The adoption of AgTech and the use of it, I think it's a mindset, and it's bright. The future is very bright for agriculture.
Alastair?
Yeah, I can only second that. I think that we're all very passionate about it. I don't think we're going anywhere. We want to continue to deliver to the rest of the world the very top best possible product, and share the story. I think that is a large part of this as well. The digitization can share that story, and so looking forward to being an active role player in the space.
Excellent. And Greg is not only jumping for the stars; he's looking to get to Mars to plant grapes. So you, Greg, you're positive about the future in the respect to South African fresh produce being aligned to the right AgTech processor systems.
Yeah, I think it's very bright. I think, South Africans are, as I said, very unique, and there's a lot of inherent agriculture in all of us. And, we go-getters, we make plans, and I think, just looking around the table with the likes of your Martins, your Alastairs, and what they're doing at their respective businesses, it's extremely bright.
Yeah, well done. Lianne, come on, you tell us, you've been watching and listening and fielding some of the comments that are coming from afar. Do you think this is a bright space? Do you think this is a bright space for AgTech in South Africa?
Yeah, absolutely, Max. I think, if you look at the talent that we have, if you look at the innovations that's coming out of South Africa, and I think a lot of that driven by necessity. We have such a diverse supply base, from having your mega commercial farmers to your smallholder farmers. We have an infrastructure challenge, but we are one of the global producers in the world. So I think our country is there. We're developing the innovations, we're developing the tech, and I think if you look at the next generation of people coming through into the businesses, they're all new, they're bursting with new ideas. And it definitely is a space which is going to grow and get more sophisticated and get more just tech-led. I think both from the sort of digitization side, but from the biotech side as well.
Excellent. And I've just had a WhatsApp. Could all of the expert speakers just shout out their website so that I could have a look at them? Martin, you go first. How can we find out more about ZZ2, please?
You can go to zz2.co.za, thinkninjas.co.za, freshlink.co.za. Those are pretty much some of our websites, URLs.
Excellent. Alastair?
KHULA, KHULA.co.za.
Hey, well done. And Greg?
AgrigateOne.com.
Excellent. And Lianne will remember this. We had a UK MD who was trying to bid for the lovely branded tops from a previous speaker, and he's been on again. And sorry, Martin, you don't have a branded top on, but Alastair and Greg, if you'd be happy to sell your tops, he's happy to he's happy to buy them for 500 US a piece if you say that the Lions are the best rugby team in the world. Alastair?
I've never heard of them.
Good result. Greg?
I'm not going to say that.
Branded top today.
Well done. Lianne, are there any events in the short term in Southern Africa that we should be made aware of, please?
We've got a couple of things. We've got a event coming up in May, a Fresh Solutions event. We just ran one last week, which was great for our members here in South Africa. We have a couple of events around fruit logistica. We have an executive summit where we're getting our members together to really shape some of the activities we're running as an association. So we'd love to have input from the industry there. So reach out to me if you'd like to be part of that, shaping the industry and the role associations can play. So watch your space. We're busy this year. We're out of lockdown. We're meeting, we're gathering, we're connecting.
Yes, look forward to seeing you all shortly in real life. So Lianne and your fantastic team at the IFPA in Southern Africa, thank you. Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you very much, Alastair. Dial into all of their social media to follow them ongoing. Another fascinating broadcast with Lianne and the team. Everyone, thank you very much. Keep safe, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thanks a lot.